you can see, I'm working in the studio today, and I needed to be working in 1970 in the summer because the job at Falmouth had fallen through. I didn't have any money coming in. I was skint, so you know, I thought I've got to make it somehow, and I had Desmond Dekker ringing in my ears. To make it by applying for a job at the University of Reading 2 days a week, teaching in the fine art department. The catch was I had to be teaching plastic vacuum forming. I didn't know anything about plastic vacuum forming, so I went to see the Slade professor, Sir William Coldstream, and I told him this. They're quite honest about it, and he said, "Oh, let me ring up the Royal College of Art. I'll ring up Misha Black, he's the head of the engineering department, industrial design department there. You go down there for a week and learn how to do it," which I did. I went down there to learn how to do it, and then he also rang out Professor Claude Rogers at Reading. This is how things were done, to say I'd be coming for interview, and I was a jolly good chap. I assume he said that. Anyway, off I went to Reading. Mr. Grills, you found us. Good journey. Would you be so kind as to take a seat here? Sorry, it's just a corridor. I'll inform Professor Rogers you have arrived. No other candidates. Maybe nobody fancies plastic vacuum forming. Just me. Anyway, I desperately need the job. So, Vaughan, you'll be able to wax lyrical about plastic vacuum forming. So don't worry. Mr. Grills, the interview panel is ready to see you now. Please do come in. This time the panel is just two. Professor Rogers, rotund, and Chris Lane, head of sculpture, not rotund. Professor Rogers starts. Well, how do you see your teaching career going? Oh, I intend to be a practicing artist, Professor Rogers. First and foremost, throughout my life. Yes, so do we all. What? Well, it's just that I wouldn't want to be a full-time teacher. That is why I applied for this job. But the stimulation of teaching students would... Chris Lane supportively introduced himself. Help you as well as the students? Yeah, absolutely. The two go hand in hand. Symbiotic. Did I really say that word? It's just that I won't want to run a department or even an art school. I kind of, you mean? No, someone has to do it, Professor Rogers, and I do think it should always be a practicing artist, like you are. That is, of course, if you want to do it and can do it. My father hired a practicing artist to run his art department at the school he was head of. He believed that practitioners should run things like art and music departments in schools, not just in universities. Oh yes? Tell us more. Well, it was in Nottinghamshire. He ran a little church secondary school. But the school inspectors weren't happy with my father, as he'd appointed a man who was just an artist and hadn't been trained to teach. I pause. Why are they interested in this? What the fuck has this got to do with plastic vacuum forming? Go on, please. What happened? Well, my father said to the school inspectors that he himself would train the artist to teach. That was easy. But he couldn't train him to be an artist, could he? Claude Rogers leans back in his chair. He seems to be enjoying this strange interview. In fact, he starts chuckling. I say, your dad obviously shut them up with that. Excellent. What a good fellow. Yeah, quite. Peter Brannan was the teacher's name. He shows at the Leicester Galleries in London, I think, occasionally. He's a good painter, a bit like Cotman, his work is. Yes, I know Cotman, excellent watercolourist. Yes, but it's not like my work, of course, as you've seen from the slides I sent you. Yes, yes, says the professor. Chris Lane introduced himself by saying, "No, quite, we're looking at your work. Interesting though, is it not?" "Oh yes, indeed." "I think I may have heard of Peter Brannan," says Chris. "Were you taught by him at all?" Yes, I was, for a short time, when I went to my father's school for a year after failing my 11 plus, after another school, secondary modern, anyway. His art room was like his studio. Amazing things there. Drapery, model theatres, sort of Aladdin's cave of a studio. What else can I say? My father, though, he retired some years ago. "Does he paint in retirement?" asked Professor. No, he's not an artist, but sometimes he does little cartoon things. Not bad. He reads, not literature. Once my mother asked him why he didn't read literature, and he said because he didn't read it all. He was an English teacher originally, you see. Chris Lane leads forward. "So what does he read?" Thrillers mostly. Rex Stout is a favourite. In a pub with a pint on the side. My mother says he's the only man she knows who takes a book for a drink. "Well, good for him. So what would you like to ask us?" says the professor. Well, the plastic vacuum forming. I've got some photographs here of sculptures I've made using the technology. Professor Rogers glances through the half-dozen 10 by 8 black and white photos I've produced. He passes them to Chris Lane. "Interesting," says Chris. "Plastic books." "Not to be taken for a drink, what?" interjects the professor. They still haven't answered my question. So why plastic vacuum forming?" Professor Rogers glances at Chris Lane and back to me. I do think that's a technical question for sculpture colleagues. I'm sure it can be answered satisfactorily after this interview somewhere. They will be in touch. The secretary returns. Can she take me down to the sculpture department where a colleague will be found to explain? A colleague is found. Now 2 of us are standing before a huge plastic vacuum former, which has pride of place in its own room. I'll try again. "Well, you see, Vaughan, it's quite simple. The fact is, we bought it in March because the Fine Art Department had a certain amount of surplus funds at the end of the financial year." "Oh, you're looking rather puzzled, Vaughan. If we hadn't bought it, the university would have cut the money from the budget for next year. That would have been terrible." We stare at the vast machine in silence. I must make another effort and walk around it slowly. I must appear as fascinated as possible, even though I'm bored stiff. "A very impressive machine." "Yes, isn't it? Sorry, Vaughan, I must shoot off now, but please feel free to wander around and before you leave, and good luck with the job." I do some wandering around with the rest of the department. It is all very civilised. Now I'm in what is probably the main sculpture studio. 2 technicians at the far side of some large slices of tree trunk spread out on the floor. They are varnishing the tree trunks, it seems. Over in the corner is a stack of carved wooden legs. They look as though they have already been varnished. "Hello, I'm Vaughan Grills. I came for an interview to teach here. Plastic vacuum forming." "Oh yeah, we need someone for that. Now we've got that machine. Have you seen it?" "Oh yes, thank you. Very impressive. I look forward to using it. If I get the job, that is." You won't use it even if you do get the job. We haven't got any plastic to go with it, you see. Too expensive. No budget for that. Nobody thought of that. Oh, but anyway, my friend, what do you think of these? Good, eh? He points to the tree trunk slicers. Yes. Interesting garden furniture style sculpture. Who are you making it for? Who's the sculptor? Well, mate, it is garden furniture. We make it in the holidays for a bit of pin money. Because I did try, and I got the job teaching part-time at Reading University. The first semi-permanent job I got, well, at least for a year.